Hello and welcome to Edukemy's YouTube channel. My name is Harsh Singh and in this video we shall discuss current affairs and Gazette for today, that is 1st of February 2022. Before we begin this discussion, let me inform you it's a special day because the budget was tabled in the parliament and yesterday the economic survey was as well released. So in this context, today's current affairs will largely be based on both of them, the economic survey and the budget released. We will also have a series of videos on what were the budget proposals and new programs the government has ensured to launch, all right, and innumerable entities that have been covered in economic survey. They can be quoted throughout the year. A lot of progress have happened throughout the country, and economic survey is a gist of the evaluation of the last year's experience from the government's end, right? So in this regard, we will begin the current affairs discussion today, and this one is a very special and important current affairs, the feature news and the current affairs, this one. So before we begin, let me welcome Bhavani, good evening. Hi Amlan. Sam, good evening. Hello Ravi. Hi Netra. Hima, good evening. We have other people here joining as well. Kriti, good evening to you. And Ashish, good evening. Hi Deep Shikha. Somik, good evening to you. People who joined a little late, absolutely no problem. And other people who are joining offline or joining in a short while. Welcome to all of you. Now, I have noted down the points that you have presented. They are worth emulating, they are worth copying, they are worth putting them down in my notebook as well. Special mention to the three keywords that were made by Kriti here. Absolutely, the three pinpointed measures: Swamitva, DILRMP. This is the land records automation and digitization, and the rural area mapping. These are the keywords. If you use, you are sailing through anywhere, right, with these kind of keywords. In fact, all of you reading the comments would have clearly understood that if one remembers these keywords, this is how the progress is going to be made. So we will also understand what were the keywords spoken by the finance minister in the budget speech. I went through the whole speech, 1.5 hour speech, and I also noted down the keywords which she used, something that we can always use, right? So with this, we begin the conversation. Hello, Alpna, welcome to you. Now, we will discuss each of these issues that you have spoken about in one of the snapshots that we have today. Today we have one snapshot, one update article, and three editorials, and after that we will quickly move ahead to the feature news for today, all right? But some important updates also, let me discuss that. Amlan spoke about the update from United Nations Security Council. It was in the news, right? So what was in the news was that India abstained from voting in one of the procedural votes at United Nations Security Council. See, India is one of the members right now, non-permanent members amongst the 15 members, 5 permanent plus 10 temporary members for 2 years. India is one of them, and this is a procedural vote. This was not a vote on what is happening in Ukraine. The Security Council just wanted to discuss what is happening in Ukraine, not to vote on that issue. So in that discussion, there were 10 members who voted in favor, two members, Russia and China, who voted not in favor of discussion, right? Russia has also, alleged USA of escalating these matters, right, out of hands, which is not required, right? Sensationalization of these issues. This is what Russia has exclaimed, and this is the reason they want to discuss. They don't want to discuss this in the Security Council. India, on the other hand, abstained from voting. Abstain means neutral, but right now it might indicate that abstention is just that. All right, I don't know if we want to discuss this or not. So mostly no. That means right now in favor of Russia. See, as we discussed yesterday itself, that these two parties, Russia and USA, both are India's friends, and considering Russia and the equation with China, I think it's better that India slightly inclines itself in favor of Russia for now, right? Because if India does not incline, Russia will automatically move towards China, and then Russia-China coalition, right? RIC, if you remember this mini-lateral, right? In this, India is one, Russia is one, and China is one. India will not be treated at par with Russia and China, and this is not going to be in favor in East Asia dynamics, all right? So this is what is one of the updates. So India walks a tightrope. This is the update from one of the newspapers, I think Indian Express today's. And then another one that I would like to show to you that was also asked in the exam. See, these are merely updates. These are merely updates, but they are so important for us to relate to. We have studied all this. Tracking NCAP, right? So National Commission for Air Pollution, right? The agenda has been that since the year it was instituted in the year 2017-18, we had to reduce pollution by 20 to 30%, right? By the year 2024. So it says marginal dip in pollution levels, states not spending enough funds. Now start relating about states funding here. Why are states not spending enough? Yesterday we discussed about judicial infrastructure, right? States not funding, even when central government is funding, state is not funding here as well. So this is about federal relations or about state not being empowered enough to be able to handle its finances, dependent on central government, and central government directing where to spend, where not to spend. They don't have finances enough. This is another one. And also there was a news that January month, these parameters of January month, especially around the whole country, there have been more rainfalls, isn't it? You would have experienced rainfall in many of the parts of India, winter rainfalls because of western disturbances, and not only wettier but colder winters as well. Why so? See, this is because of the western disturbances, increased number of disturbances, and causing more rainfall. And for this reason, the pollution parameters, right, the smog parameters, they have reduced. Fog has increased, yes, but smog has reduced. So these are quick updates. Moving ahead to quickly to another beautiful article. This is the first snapshot, the only snapshot for today. Now, this is where the relevance to our question that I asked, what is the significance of geospatial mapping for planning assessment of our country, right? So this is the geospatial mapping that I am speaking of. What is geospatial here? We keep on speaking of this word. Geo means earth, land, and spatial, right? So referring to the spaces or different regional dimensions taken from the space or from the earth itself, right? So right now, when geospatial mapping happens, or GIS, Geographical Information System happens, what happens is that through the help of satellites, communication satellites and resource mapping satellites, communication satellites are placed far above, right, 36,000 kilometers height, but remote sensing satellites are placed in the lower Earth orbit, 1,500 kilometers above the Earth. So many of these satellites are placed above the Earth, specifically India, in this case India, and they will keep mapping India's resource potential or the present level of resources. Example, when a satellite is placed right above our country, they will be able to map what are the places where there is tree cover, where there is more lighting happening at night. This is referred to as night luminosity, right? The luminescence at night, the brightness during night times. They can also measure what is the kind of pollution available in water. They can also measure if the land area is cropped or not. You know why? Now, see, once we know this data, we can map it on spatially on India's map itself, and this will tell us a lot about India's present resource and its potential. It can help us in assessment of present resources and planning for the future resources. In fact, these maps can also help us to understand the resources present below the earth level, right, below the earth. So presence of water, presence of minerals, right, the presence of urban population. Oh, look at that, there is no dearth of what we can do through this. So people questioning, just an opinion, people questioning the applicability of space technology for development of India. This is the applicability, universal application, and we are doing far too well here, right? So this is what we have presented in the first snapshot, that India has been able to utilize satellite potential to its brim, and this is a screen, this is a photograph from this economic survey itself. What are we talking of here? We are talking of various maps. By the way, how have they created these maps? See, they have been able to create these maps through understanding of the fact that light reflects differently from different surfaces. This is the principle behind it. Light reflects differently from different surfaces. So if it is clean water, the reflection will be different. It will be transparent, light can get in and then it will get reflected back in a different way. It's the word is if you know the word for this is called as albedo, right? So reflection of light from clouds will be different, reflection of light from polluted source of water will be different, dark water, brown water, brackish water, and clean water will be different. Similarly, reflection level from trees will be completely different. Urban areas can be mapped clearly because of the kind of road network, the kind of network of homes and houses. And night luminosity can also be able to be mapped. So through this, we are able to map this, and we are able to plan the country's resources, potential, assessment of present, and what can happen in the future. Beautiful display. So this economic survey has used geospatial data and cartographic techniques to compare development in the last decade. Let's understand this. So this is nighttime luminosity. Through this we understand 10 years back, 2012, this was the level of light luminosity, nighttime, and this is present times. So if you see, if the one direct correlation is the light pollution, if you would like to call it that way. Other one is the kind of progress India has made, development progress. This was present in one of the newspapers. I think this was from Business Standard or Indian Express today's. And then you see the kind of lighting that has happened at night times, the change in the last decade, right? So through this we understand which are the urban areas present in our country. Earlier it was sporadic bole to kam presence, and now you see bigger presence. Look at the NCR region, look at eastern UP and Bihar region, you look at the other places around south. So you should be able to know the places at least. So this is Mumbai, this is Ahmedabad, and then we have, this is Ahmedabad, this is Hyderabad, this is Bengaluru, this is Chennai, this is the Kolkata region, right? This is the NCR region, including Jaipur and parts of northern India, Chandigarh, right? So this is one of the mapping that they have done. Look at the way they have mapped commercial banks in the whole of country, the spread of commercial banks in the country. In 2011, they had 74,000 branches and spread over the country, and now they have almost 1.6 times the number, 1,23,000. And look at the spread. So through this, we will be able to target those places where the spread is less. Those areas, urban areas or rural areas, specifically rural areas or far-flung areas. See the kind of mapping. We hardly have any kind of bank presence in those areas. Look at Arunachal, look at Kutch, look at the desert area, look at the cold desert area, hardly anything. And if you compare with the year 2011, you see a remarkable difference. All right. Because of Jam Trinity. Thank you for using this Amlan yesterday. Similarly, highway network, beautiful, right? The government has also proposed this time Gati Shakti. Gati Shakti, we have spoken of this number of times. Prime Minister spoke of it during the Independence Day speech. And this is one of the frameworks for the budget this time. One of the 4 pillars for budget declared by the Prime Minister is Gati Shakti itself. Huge capital infrastructure investment. And road network spread is one of them, right? 25,000 kilometers of road construction in the coming years. This is what they have proposed. Not only roads, railway, airways, logistics park, a lot of it. We'll discuss this. So right now, just explaining to you this part, that this is how this is helping us. So when you look at how it is helping us, thank you each of you for providing inputs, and I acknowledge this, and I really appreciate those people who put on the keywords or government initiatives here. Those are the ones which are credible, which are going to fetch you marks, right? So thank you. You are actually escalating yourself from the level of only knowledge gaining to, yes, putting back the knowledge in a synchronized form and using the most lucrative part of knowledge to lure the answer checker, invigilator. Thank you very much for doing this. And I really want to do this, continue this, because through this you are looking at each other, no? Development, you understand what each of you are providing, and keep helping each other. Sara gyan to hai, but usko use kaise karna hai? There is all the knowledge present on in the world, in scripts form, in videos form, but how to use it, this is the most important part. You're learning from your peers here, you're learning from whatever we provide here, right? So this is the first snapshot, the only snapshot that we have today. And how are the satellites images created, right? So absorbing the light or reflecting the light, and this is gauged by the satellite for a few hours, and then they are able to map this earlier. So this is not India's project. NASA has started this, European Space Agency ESA also started it, and later on India's Resource-Sat also, lower Earth orbit satellites did this work. So better work. How are the satellites image used? See, so when you look at the question that I provided, this is the answer. Nighttime luminosity can help us understand the presence of urban landscape, rural landscape. right? We are looking at almost 50% of urban population by 2050. Almost 50%. We'll be able to target tier 2, tier 3 cities, right? The smaller cities. Tier 1 cities with 1 lakh plus population, and then we have million plus cities in India, right? 30-40 of them. Point being that if we are able to know these areas where there is less lighting, but definitely lighting is there, we should start targeting these places. How are we provided with these places? Through geospatial mapping, GIS. This is how it helps. Land use maps, right? Agricultural cover, right? So where is the wheat farming happening? Where is the paddy farming happening? Tracking of pollution, right? So not only that, what about weather hazards? Weather hazards can be tracked through these maps. So this is what we have covered here. What are the shortcomings of this? I asked you what are the issues with it. So yes, good that you provided some of the issues. Let me share with you some of them. This cannot work all the time. So weather is one constraint. Pollution interface is another constraint, right? Space debris is another constraint, right? Then we have competition in space, so outer space treaty, right? And weaponization of outer space. Provide now. All of this we have spoken of. Just that I'm not saying all I'm saying is that you should start interrelating the topics right now. All of you who have been present live in the video, have been a part for at least 2-3 months. This is mere repetition. If you revise the concepts, if you revise them at the end of the week, it will come to you. And this economic survey is nothing new. It is only an upgradation from the last year. So once we go thoroughly with one economic survey, the next one is only going to be a minor upgradation from it. So once you do this work of remembering for 2-3 months, you see the change. I am in touch with quite a few of you, and I have seen this change happening to you. So do this, right? Great. Today's feature news is on key highlights of the economic survey. Will make you understand what is an economic survey, what has been its theme. In a beautiful series of 4-page article, we will make you understand all the 9-10 chapters, and in short, all the 9-10 chapters that we have had in the economic survey. I will also go ahead to tell you more about the speech that was made by the finance minister today, and I have myself taken the keywords. I'll show you that document. Along with that, there is a beautiful document that I came across from the government itself. Such a lucid document talking about whatever happened today in the parliament budget session. And you can start quoting all this for at least 2 years from now, at least 2 years, this data. So let's use this wisely in the feature news today, right? So interesting feature news for you coming up, lot of information, but yes, this February information is going to support you until next February, all right? And at least until next February. Moving ahead to the next article, we have the 3 editorials, all right? So let me discuss each of them quickly. Let's discuss this one first, Afghanistan-Pakistan relations and the Durand Line, right? So we have discussed something about the Durand Line previously. And the Durand Line is the line that is drawn between the borders of, at the borders of Pakistan and Afghanistan, erstwhile India, British India and Afghanistan. All right. So erstwhile British India, which also had Pakistan, versus Afghanistan. This is where the line was drawn in the 19th century. It was finalized. Now, there is a context of drawing of this line and why it was drawn by the Britishers. Very beautiful editorial, provides you an insight on the future relationship between Afghanistan, Pakistan, and how it is going to affect India. I'll share this part. So what happens is that, first of all, these are the frontier regions. If you remember, we had spoken of this. Many of the people, Chanakya Niti people, strategists have spoken that Afghanistan is the frontier for India. And this is the space which is again a buffer zone. Remember the buffer zone of Russia? Ukraine, Belarus is the buffer zone for them. So this is a keyword for you. The buffer zone for India, Pakistan is Afghanistan region. Britishers tried to occupy this territory innumerable times. They failed. Many Anglo-Afghan wars were there and repeated skirmishes, but these tribes, they have been far too strong to be overpowered by the Britishers in the past. I'm talking of 200 years back. So finally Britishers said, fine, nothing doing, we will have a treaty with them and we will establish a line called as Durand Line, right? Mr. Durand himself said that we do not want a formal boundary. Formal boundary will not be in the interest of Britishers, but we want a frontier to be mapped beyond which the administration will be with Afghanistan and behind which it will be ours. So First of it was the British administered regions directly under British control. This is the region 1. The second one, the second layer of defense for Britishers was those areas where they were vassals, king's vassals, or dukes or tribes, or those estates which were under Britishers control. So some Maharaja would be administering. This is their second level of defense. And the third level of defense would be Afghanistan itself. So if you look in the context of this, this is the third level of defense. Afghanistan itself is the third level of defense. Although administered by the tribes and Afghan administration only, the kings of Duranis of Afghanistan of those times, but Britishers would have support. Now, why did they have this kind of line drawn? So that first of all, they will have a defense level, and secondly, they will also be able to participate with Afghanis peacefully. Why? Because this is the 19th century I'm speaking of, where there was a war between Britishers and the USSR as well. Right? There was a war around the world between Britishers and USSR in the 19th century. In Europe as well, in Asia also. So USSR was destined to attack Afghanistan, and it did so, but not that time. It did attack in the 80s, right, 1980s, but in fear of USSR impending attack on Afghanistan, Britishers had to create this zone of buffer, right? So this is the context. Mr. Durand himself said that we do not want to create a formal boundary. This formal boundary may have existed with other countries, but British India and Afghanistan, no formal boundary. This is what he said. But the reality is such that this was not a boundary accepted by the Afghan people, especially the Pashtun tribe. These tribes have existed here for thousands of years, and see, thousands of years of Pashtun tribe. And then we have 1300 years for Islam formation. And then we have around 70 years of formation of Pakistan. And then we also have this Taliban group, right? So many identities these people have. I had read this in one of the premier magazines, Economist, years back, but it is forever going to be true that the identities of people here, Pashtun people especially, are multifaceted. They are not only Pashtun tribes, they are also people with Islam background. They are also people. So Islam is another identity for Pakistan or Afghanistan, right? So Islamic Republic of, what is the full name of Pakistan? Can somebody say that? So just like we are Democratic Republic of India, Pakistan's passport will have something written on it, and so will Afghanistan, Islamic Republic or Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. This is what they are trying to establish. So when people have multiple identities, what is their primary identity which they will stick to? Pashtun identity or Islam identity, which nationalization of the country boundaries is happening through region basis also in a country like Pakistan. The third one is Pakistan identity or Taliban. What is the identity they will use? They would like to stick to the most primitive and the most natural identity they have, that is Pashtun. And these people are not happy with the creation of this boundary. Afghanis have not accepted, especially Pashtun have not accepted this kind of Durand Line. They rejected this. In fact, in Vienna Conventions, we have, these kind of rejections cannot happen. But there are clauses where it says you can reject this kind of boundary issues in case it was forced upon you. So they have also raised that clause, that we have not accepted this since 1949. They have had the same stand irrespective of change of government in Afghanistan, right? They say that our people, the same people, families, they have been segregated. And in South Asia, the thing is, not only South Asia, after the imperial domination ended, Britishers, European powers ended in the 1940s, 50s and 60s, countries started to assert their nationalism. And how? Through increased border patrolling, nationalism. Through increased demonstrations or presence of defense securities at the border areas. This has further alienated the families which were residing on both the sides of these regions. In fact, Pakistan would also persecute the Pakhtunkhwa population in FATA, federally administered tribal areas. They had these kind of acts which ensured that if one person of that particular community committed something bad, the whole community would be punished. They only repealed this very, very late. But then the damage was done. Afghani people and Pakhtun people wouldn't accept this boundary. Now, what has Pakistan been doing as a better state? Afghanistan has not been in a state of rest, and Pakistan has been slowly and steadily expanding its boundaries, right? There are places where they have expanded 1 kilometer, 1.5, 7.5 kilometers as well inside. And these people have always noted this. They are also formalizing the structure. 90-95% of the boundary they want to erect, right? Fencing of this. But Afghanistan is against this, and now Taliban are against this. Taliban who are supported by Pakistan, they are against this. So sooner or later this was to happen. We had covered this in the month of August itself. August 15, when India's Independence Day was getting celebrated, Afghanistan came under the influence of or the domination of Taliban, and we covered this aspect that this problem will sooner or later emerge. And this has emerged, and there have been firings across the border, both the sides, right? Afghans have gained access to the Afghan security forces and US special forces weaponry and all the missiles and gadgets. So there have been wars, and this is the issue. But see, know one thing, that Afghanistan, more than 50% of population is going through food crisis, extreme food crisis, health crisis, and because of this, Afghanistan right now needs international recognition. More than Afghanistan, Taliban needs it. And this is why we have had the Oslo talks, use these keywords. So Oslo talks, but for this recognition, it will also need Pakistan's support. So this is a very precarious, dangerous situation for this international relationship. What should happen for India? What should India do? Right, India should start assisting Afghanistan in these kind of ventures. All right, so this is the update from the first one. All right, what is the second editorial? The second and the third editorial both are related to the somehow related to the budget issues. So let us quickly cover them as well. All right. So let me quickly look at what you have said here. After all, Russia has veto power to bring down any resolution. All right. So has not only Russia, all the P5 countries have. Amran says, from this month, Russia presides over UNSC. All right. Albedo effect. All right. Good. Good, Somik. Nice. Can also help in oceanography, such as coastal zone mapping. Yes, yes. Hima, absolutely correct. Not only coastal zone mapping, presence of marine resources. India has started to provide subsidy. India declared will provide subsidy for shrimp cultivation and export. India is one of the major countries which exports shrimp and marine products. So yes, mapping of the ocean resources. Use the word DOM, Deep Ocean Mission, having 6 objectives. We can also map resources which are present at the bottom of ocean, right? So that is what it is. So what are the lacunae in geospatial mapping? As I mentioned, Somik, many lacunae in geospatial mapping. If we want to do this, the technical issues are the presence of clouds, the presence of pollution layer, and this can actually impede the real-time availability of data. Right now, we are speaking of a very flexible level. Economic survey itself, one of the themes of economic survey is that it is very flexible. We can provide short-term data, and this short-term data will not be available if the geospatial mapping is happening, all right, but it is inaccurate because of pollution, because of climate issues. So we need technological upgradations. Not only that, how about the international issues? As I mentioned, the issue of outer space treaty, right? So how about the space pollution, the availability of junk aircrafts, right? Space objects, all right. There are many of them you can state. 5, 6 will be sufficient. So Durand Line was anywhere responsible for making Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region? Durand was anywhere responsible? See, these are Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region are those territorially FATA regions we are talking of. And how is Durand Line responsible for this? I am not aware of the history of Pakistan in that way. But these are the federal areas in which the tribes would be living, and there was special control over this. Just like union territories have special control. So this is it. All right, Hima, thank you. Islamic Republic of Pakistan. Good. So moving ahead to the next article here, how India can adapt to global geoeconomic churn. All right, this we discuss later. The first one is this hazy picture on employment in India. See, India has had employment data suggested by multiple authorities, right? So we have had the decennial census. We have also had data from periodic labor force survey report. Now, India has 3 years of documented data. Every year it has gotten presented this data. But then the other data that we have, other surveys and this survey, this both use different parameters, different data. So when we talk of a synchronized survey, we need that. We need a synchronized survey having, a holistic level of data. When we have different surveys indicate different data, and since they have different parameters, an accurate analysis cannot be made. So this is where we are speaking of the hazy picture. One proof of this, right? Another proof of the hazy picture of employment data is that though the GDP of the country has grown, though the participation of people in various sectors has grown, participation has grown, but the proportion has not grown proportionally, right? So I'm sorry to mention this. The proportion has changed, but the effective number of people has not changed in the rate of that proportion. So what I mean to say is, for example, agricultural sector. If agriculture sector represented 30%, it actually did earlier, and it has reduced to 18% in the last 20 years. The proportional rate of reduction of people participating directly in agriculture has not reduced. The hazy picture is also because manufacturing sector is not booming. Right? I was just looking at the manufacturing sector issues in a country like ours. If we should have been growing at a rate of around 8%, 7% in manufacturing industry, remember Make in India scheme, one of the key objectives to grow at 12 to 14% to be able to achieve, to be able to have 25% proportion of the industry sector, right? In the complete, sectoral mapping of the 3 sectors of economy. But it is not happening because manufacturing sector is not growing, manufacturing base is not growing. And this is why people from agriculture, they are not able to move directly to manufacturing sector. See, service sector is most rewarding, right? 25% of employment and giving 50% of the GDP. Do you remember this data or not? Right? So service sector is giving almost 50% of GDP contribution and just has 25% of employment people. That means the efficiency of labor participation is maximum in service sector. Manufacturing, but service sector also employs highly skilled laborers, right? Blue collar or white collar laborers who have got skills. But manufacturing can employ those people with semi-skill, less skill as well. Industrial laborers or construction sector, many of this can be capitalized, but manufacturing itself is not growing. This is a part of this editorial. It mentioned this clearly, right? On the other hand, there are some data which have been presented through periodic labor force survey report. We have criticized this report. We have appreciated this report. It came back 3-4 months back. We discussed this thoroughly. So one of the pointers here is that the women participation in the rural areas is high, and the male participation in urban areas in labor force is high. That is true, all right, we agree with it. But it says that the participation of women, although is high, but the impact of the lockdown has not been truly represented as far as rural population is considered. You know why? Because it says that women or people, migrant laborers, they have moved to self-employment generation. On the other hand, this self-employment generation is not a qualitative job. This is out of desperation. This is not only low quality, this is low productive. Use these words. And this is also low remunerative. If I have opened a pan shop, remunerative. If I have opened a pan shop and I am not able to even get 100 rupees out of that shop as my profit per day, so this is what is happening through self-employment. People who had gainful employment earlier, see the word gainful and look at this quality of employment. So we need better quality employment for rural areas also, and for urban migrants as well. So urban job guarantee scheme. These were the components that were discussed in this editorial. Interesting editorial, a little technical in nature, a very long one. And the third one is on how can India adapt to the global geoeconomic churn. See, there have been theories presented that in the modern world, when the world starts to, so this is an article related to geopolitics and international relations, and a philosophical article. So it says that when any economy, the whole world expands and it goes through globalization, when everything becomes global, then there is more interdependence. So one cannot corner the other country, or one region cannot corner the other region. All of them will be dependent on something or the other with each other. But having said that, this interdependence has been, and this is multipolarity that we are speaking of, right? But this has been impeded right now. This was a picture 30 years back. It was envisaged, people envisioned this for globalization, that it would be a decent move for the whole world, right? A political move. But the kind of polarities that have grown, USA, China, because of this, all these interdependence has come to a corner, right? So this is where India needs to start adapting to the geoeconomics of the particular region and then the whole world. This is why we need to build supply chain resilience initiative of the Quad. We need to build it. We need to participate in these partnerships, right? India has also provided. That is the reason. See, these are strategic documents, and the real groundwork. This is think tank speaking, right? Mr. Raja Mohan speaking here, right? But when you look at the groundwork, these think tanks are the ones which provide important policy inputs to the government, and government starts to fund those kind of projects. So we will read in the economic survey and the budget that the capital expenditure, CapEx, has drastically increased 35% over the last year. This is a phenomenal increase, and this budget has been appreciated through and through because it has not favored any political rallies or political speeches, not lured people. Capital expenditure has been raised 35% from 5.5 lakh rupees to 7.5 lakh rupees. Imagine this humongous development here. So this capital expenditure will be used for what? These Gati Shakti projects, social sector initiatives, Jal, many schemes for tap water initiatives, for corona pandemic fighting, for employment generation, skill, and ensuring that health and education is reached out to people. So this capital expenditure has been envisaged also considering India's supply chain resilience initiative, right? So we have started to give a lot of PLI incentives, boosting of programs, right? So production linked incentives and manufacturing linked incentives, right? So this is what this editorial also points at. Although the content of this editorial cannot be used directly, but you will be able to derive such important essence out of it, and you will see how it is actually correlating to what is happening in our country. All right. So this is what this editorial says. Above all, India needs a strategy that can address the imperatives of strengthening internal capabilities, forging geoeconomic partnerships, and forming geopolitical alliances with like-minded countries. See, so one sentence can encapsulate the whole essence of this essence as well, right? This is what you need to do. Internal capabilities, forging geoeconomic partnerships, and third, geopolitical alliances with like-minded countries. Okay? I need examples of each of them. Suppose if I need them. Internal, I'm telling you how to utilize information here. So with each of these points, internal capabilities, you have to talk about how we are augmenting our internal capabilities. So PLI linked scheme for food parks, or export-driven food parks, right? Or changing the policy for special economic zones and custom zones, or increasing the incentive linked manufacturing for semiconductor industry. All right, great. Fab industry. This is internal capacity boosting. Forging geoeconomic partnership. Okay, partnership with Vietnam. Geoeconomic partnership, right? Why economic? Because Vietnam has resources in its exclusive economic zone. And why geoeconomics? Because it is closer to China. We will have our increased presence. We will also be able to reach Russia securely through this region. Economic partnership, right? Look at the example of, and look at geoeconomics of Japan as well, right? Geopolitical alliances with Russia. So this is how you can look at each of the input that is provided through the perspective of ADEC, analysis, data, example, case studies and keyword. भैया भाई बहनों, यही है जो आपको मदद करेगा. If you remember the data, if you remember the keywords, you will take no time to be able to answer questions. And I see this happening to you people as well, right? So beautiful growth, amazing growth. You will be able to see this change when you start writing answers. Ab to ideas aa rahe hain, answers likhoge, you will feel the change. All right. So let us quickly move to the featured news, because this is the summary of the 3 editorials that we have had and the updates from news, right? The newspapers today were all full of the articles related to the budget, potential things that will happen through the budget, and the economic survey document. So let's move to that document. If you like this video, do share some love through likes, comments and shares, because these are the things through which we will only prosper and we will be able to serve you even better than this, right? And if there are questions, doubts, we will serve that to you through through your chats. All right, so let me see if there are some questions here. Somik says, other than agriculture, what are the reasons for India still has 90% workforce in unorganized sector? See, what about the level of skilling in our country, right? The level of skilling in the country and the employability factor of the youth population, right? There are other issues as well. For example, we discussed this just 2 days back, that a lot of industries do not want to move to formal because of the taxation regime. One of you stated this point, that the taxation regime in our country is such that you know, we are hardly able to tax people, but thankfully the taxation also has become better now, right? So the finance minister only today exclaimed that we have mopped up 1.4 lakh crore rupees through indirect tax collection, and this is a record figure. This has never happened in the country till now. This is monthly figure for the month of Jan, and this has happened because we have widened the indirect tax base, right? The GST regime has gotten automated through systems like e-way bill, right? Fast tax collection, lot of tax collection has happened, and this is a good reform in our country. But we need these kind of reforms in direct tax code as well, right? So in direct tax code, for example, 2.5 lakhs rupees no taxation, and then there's a complete structure, no taxation. Next 1 lakh rupees will be taxed at 5%, after that 10%, and then 20%. Can we rationalize this tax structure? And then after that, the rebate is given and surcharge is given. We need to have a tax, you know, a tax specialist to be able to help us in taxation. Why not introduce a flat taxation regime, right? According to how much we earn, proportional taxation regime. So these are the direct tax code recommended. Not only this, see, right now we pay. So one important recommendation which has been moved, not accepted right now, is that we should not have the input based taxation, right? How much we earn and this part is to be taxed. There should be taxation, direct taxation on the purchasal of products. Purchasal. So if I purchase a television for 1 lakh rupees, I should be taxed on every item that I purchase, rather than getting the taxation on input, right? There are a lot of inputs that people can hide, right? And they can start purchasing you know, devices through this. So people will not be able to get taxed. Yes, there will be an indirect tax on, you know, on every product, but people are not getting accounted for this. So in place of input based, there should be a purchase based tax. A lot of reforms recommended. And yes, to add to your point that you mentioned, my friend, is that complicated tax regimes, right? Complex tax regimes. Not only that, we also have high level of taxation, compliance, multiple level of compliances by the government, right? Provide documents every month, every 3 months. This is why people say, "Arey nahi, chhod dete hain. Let's not do it. It's too cumbersome for us." So this is another reason for informalization of many sectors. This is a complete featured news that you spoke of. So we'll discuss this informalization and formalization of the economy, right? So moving to the featured news. Thank you for participation. Ravi says 7.5 lakh crore. Absolutely. 1.4 lakh crore record collection. Absolutely, Ravi. Yeah, matching your figures. Thank you for this input. Like our initiative if you like this effort enough, and we will quickly move on to the other video. Thank you for participation.